Hello and welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Cows DA42. Now before we go on to this little video, you may notice the audio is a little bit different, and that's because I decided finally to get rid of the little mic boom that was on my headset, which gave okay audio, and I've actually gone and bought myself an actual microphone. So hopefully the audio is going to come out a little bit better. Right, this video is going to be once again about the Cows DA42. We've actually got a two-part video here. Version 1.0.2 has just landed, or landed a couple of days ago, as of this video being made. And I'm going to go through the changes we've had to the DA42. Also, we're going to be talking about the autopilot system here in the TwinStar. So, first of all, 1.0.2 just landed, like I said. And in the patch notes, we'll get a rough idea of what's been changed by Cows, and it will also go into some of the detail that this aircraft has. Now, I've always said this is a training aircraft. It was developed by training companies who use the DA42, by instructors, by trainee pilots, probably with the help of Diamond themselves. It is a study level aircraft here for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. And like I said, the latest version has just landed. Right, so what do we get in 1.0.2? We have restored correct flap pitch moments. I have literally no idea what that is. I know it's something to do with the flaps. Flap pitch. I think it might be how much the flap is dropping. Because obviously there is set positions. In the DA42, there is flaps up, flaps approach, flaps landing. So there's different positions, pitch positions of those flaps. So they've probably corrected them a little bit. Again, I've not noticed. I've never sat in a DA42, so I don't know if that's, accurate or anything. But obviously they have felt the need to tweak that. We also have added slight wiggle when shutting down and during cold starts. Now, if you try to start any engine in the cold, and I mean really cold, it will struggle. And I think what they've done here, I mean, I can't really demonstrate at the moment because these temperatures are lovely. But if you start the engines, they will struggle a little bit. And they've added a little wiggle from maybe the nacelle, maybe the aircraft itself, to make it feel like the aircraft or the engine system is alive. More realistic, I should say. Improved windmill start physics. So if you have a windmilling engine, so you've turned the engine off in flight, I dare say we now have different physics of how the wind and atmosphere reacts to the propeller blades and engine. So again, I've not tried this in the flight sim, so I don't know, how realistic this is going to be. Made keyboard flying more responsive. Now, yes, I have got a Thrustmaster Warthog stick, throttle, and Verpel rudder pedals even. A great setup, works well with this aircraft, and there are many other options out there for joysticks, columns, rudders, anything, you name it. But there are people out there that still fly the flight simulator with a keyboard control, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's still enjoying the simulator, and they have now made the keyboard controls regarding flying to be more responsive. We have improved yaw damp, improved autopilot and yaw damping behaviours. I couldn't even say it right. So they're connected together. Again, it's more feelings to do with the aircraft and how it flies. And the improved autopilot and yaw dampening obviously is being tweaked. ECU logic improvements. I could do with some of that myself, actually, but ECUs can also detect incorrect turbo wastegate performance. That is just showing you how accurate this simulated version of the DA42 is. We are now simulating the turbo stroke wastegate performance. We have a new new completely independent standby barrow. So this will be do with the altitude, I do believe, not 100%. New wastegate controller. Added smoothing to inputs. So this is to do with joysticks. We have fixed always on nav lights. Now I never noticed this personally, but the nav lights are just sat here on the end of the wingtips, and they are off at the moment. There is no battery to this aircraft. It is completely dead. When I flew the previous version of the DA42, again, honestly, I never noticed it, so I don't know whether they were on all the time or what. I would just turn the nav lights on when the aircraft was, live. Fixed canopy glass artifacts. Again, I showed this in the previous video. The canopy looks absolutely fantastic, and so does the exterior of the aircraft. Internally speaking, again, you can feel that you are sat in a very aerodynamically good-looking aircraft. So, it may be a few blemishes they had on the software that they used to create the cockpit, the canopy. So they may have tweaked it in such a way that, obviously, there isn't the artifacts anymore. Fixed a cockpit panel gap. They went to the next degree to fix a panel gap. My car has more panel gaps in it, and here's a flight sim company, Cows, who have fixed, updated, upgraded a panel gap in a flight sim product. I think it's fantastic. Again, I never noticed it, but they fixed it. Fixed turbo damage when damage is disabled. Okay, so if you disable the damage in the Flight Simulator, turbo damage would be probably a false reading somewhere in that. So now we have the ability to fly with damage disabled in the Flight Simulator, and the turbo will not malfunction in any way, shape or form. Or that's a theory. Slowed down damage overall. Okay, so this aircraft will accrue damage, I do believe, over the time, especially with my landings. So again, they slowed down the rate of which, i.e. certain parts of the plane get damaged, or maybe they turn down, specific damage model. Added high pressure fuel pump damage. So if we have, I'm reading this as the high pressure fuel pump system, which is a twin system, because obviously we're twin engined. There obviously can be damage in doing misuse of the fuel pump system. So again, we've got that now. Added damage when taxiing with alternate air open. So this is something in the cockpit, you alternate air feed. You can create damage now whilst taxiing with this on. They've also fixed the typos in the checklist. Again, I've never gone through a checklist, and not their specific checklist. I actually went through one that was actually created for the simulated version of the DA42. And we also fixed metric units in the menu. So again, there's neither here nor there really, but it's nice. It shows you that Cows are working towards making this already awesome product so much better. And already it's a 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10. But now it is so much better. So let's move on to the second part of this video, because the first part, fairly boring, but the second part, a little bit more technical stuff. Here we have the interior of the cockpit, and I've zoomed in on the parts we're interested in. This is, if you don't know, the G1000 system. Okay, the G1000 system is 2 screens and an audio panel sat in the middle. Now, we are going to be discussing the Autopilot system whilst on the ground, and the 2 ways of which I use the Autopilot system in the Flight Simulator on my flights. So, the Autopilot main command switches are here. They're on the second screen, and yes, just going to check they're not on the first screen as well, but they are on the second screen here, which would be where your secondary multifunction display is, which is also your map. So Autopilot mode switches are all here. You also have a twin dial here, an inner and an outer, and this is your altitude adjustment. We also have that on the pilot side as well. So, you're flying, you want to set the altitude hold button as a minimum to obviously hold your altitude. Autopilot on, altitude hold button. That's all you need to do. Now the altitude hold button will hold the aircraft to 1/100th of a degree, 1/100th of an feet of altitude. So if you're progressing through 2,000 feet to 3,000 feet and you are about 2,300 feet and you press the altitude hold button, the aircraft will try and hold at about 2,300 or 2,400 depending on how close you was to it. This is a basic system. well, the G1000 certainly is a basic, but that is a basic altitude hold. But how do you select to go higher? Now, you can just turn the autopilot off and fly on up to the altitude, but that's not the way we normally do it. So what we have here is a vertical speed button that's right underneath your altitude hold button. Now, what you do is you press vertical speed, and in the top screen here, there will be an autopilot mode section, which will tell you what you're holding. And basically, you can select in hundredths of feet the rate of increase or rate of decrease, if you want to decrease your altitude, what you want to go to. So, you're in the air, you're holding at 3,000 feet, your altitude hold button is on. Press vertical speed, and you want to increase your altitude to 5,000 feet. So what you do is vertical speed and tap the up button to get your, let's say, 600 feet rate of increase. So you tap this until the number says 600, and the autopilot, because it's in autopilot hold, will automatically start climbing on up to the desired new altitude. Once you get too close to the altitude, it will start warning you that you are getting close to your preset altitude, which is 5,000 feet. And once you reach 5,000 feet, you come off vertical speed and will then stick back onto the altitude hold button. So say you want to decrease your altitude. That's the same theory. Vertical speed, redial your altitude hold, your preset altitude, okay, using your innie and your outie. That sounds incredibly wrong, but it's true. Your outer knob here does in thousandth of feet. Your innie does in within a hundredth of a feet. So you're at 5,000 feet, you want to descend back down to 3,000 feet. Click the outer section here of the alt button, drop it down to 3,000 feet, select vertical speed, rate of descent, let's put it down at, let's say, 300 feet per minute, and the aircraft will slowly descend down at 300 feet per second, that'll be good, per minute, all the way down to your new preset altitude of 3,000 feet. Now, this can be done, like I say, you can change your altitude with this knob here. It's exactly the same. And obviously, as you start to play with your altitude, you can see in the altitude ribbon, I suppose you want to call it, the altitude set for your altitude hold. Now, we're also going to talk a little bit about how to navigate, although I'm not going to talk too much about the G1000's map mode, because it is complicated, to say the least. I'm only learning this myself. I'm not going to tell you how to preset a course, and probably it would be better if I actually showed it rather than just talk about it. But we also have two very important sections or options here for following a map, a route. So your altitude is on hold. You're at 5,000 feet, that's where you want it to be. Your yaw dampener is engaged, flight director is on, and you want to change the flight heading. Go on to heading mode, start dialing the heading dial here, and basically you'll see a line that goes off, and basically the aircraft will follow that line until that new heading is achieved. Now, you can select this onto nav mode, which is when the aircraft will actually follow your preset route. So say you've got a route and you've got 4 waypoints in between your departure and arrival airport. So this on nav mode will actually follow the whole route. So basically, it's a rough idea of how the autopilot system works on the DA42. Remember, this is all functional, and I can't get this over to, I can't say any more than this. This aircraft is completely study level. Everything that you need to use to operate this aircraft works absolutely fantastically. I have flown point-to-point locations, and I will be showing this in future videos. I want to basically build up people's knowledge of this aircraft and get to the point where we will be flying point-to-point trips. We will also be flying point-to-point with different waypoints on the way. And I shall show that by going onto the nav option, and you'll see the route, the magenta lines, all what we're used to. Altitude holds, different altitude holds. descending, increasing, you know, all that sort of stuff until we get to our arrival airport. And that's the great thing about this G1000 system. It does everything. On this screen, you have your pilot information, your flight information, your head-up display, essentially. Your artificial horizon with your speed, your altitude. You've got a compass down here, which is where you'll set your route to fly. And a million other options for information. On this side, your secondary screen, you've got your map, your moving map, and you'll have your magenta line if you set one up, and you will know your course, and you'll be able to do all this lovely stuff that complicates the heck out of me. This section down here is regarding, obviously, setting up a route, and that is a video all on its own. And it's a great system, and I can't get over this. This aircraft, actually, I do believe, I hate to say this, A2A, you know, the A2A Comanche is an awesome aircraft. The Cowes DA42 Twin Star is, I'm beginning to think, a little bit better. And the only reason I think it's better is because it's a newer aircraft. Okay, and it's a twin aircraft, so it's a little more complicated. But yeah, it's that good. So I know this video again has been a talky video. I know the next video we are going to be doing a startup. We're going to be doing it by the checklist, and we're going to be taxiing out to the runway, which is back off down there, and we will show just how realistic it is to start this aircraft up and go through 90% of the procedures that a real DA42 pilot would have to go through. So if you've got any questions or comments about the DA42, please let me know, bang them below, and I will get to them eventually. And yes, I am steadily working this way up to doing a full flight. We'll be doing flights around the local area here, and we will be doing short flights, long flights. We'll be doing a lot in this DA42. It is a fantastic aircraft. Oh, and by the way, just before I leave, you may notice that this aircraft now has a repaint. When I got the 1.0.2 version, I also noticed on Orbix, which is where you can get this aircraft from, there was a pack of textures, repaints of various DA42s from around the world. And this aircraft here, Golf Lima Delta Golf Foxtrot, actually exists in the UK for leading edge aviation. So there you go, I'm actually flying a proper training aircraft, and I hope they don't watch this video because I know full well they will not be impressed with how I'm handling this aircraft. So, part 3 of this video, or this series, will be on the startup of the DA42. So I hope you found this video informative. If, like I say, you've got any questions or comments, bang them below, and I will get onto them as soon as possible.